morning. I'm Arun Upneja, Dean of the School of Hospitality Administration at Boston University. I'm delighted to welcome everyone to our second summer discussion today morning. The topic is Hospitality, Wellness, and Community, the Future of Senior Living. A few months ago, we launched a concentration on the business of seniors housing in our Master of Management in Hospitality program. We have an array of courses from within our school and additional electives from other schools and colleges at Boston University. We are also enthusiastically engaging with senior living communities and their leaders in an effort to elevate the discourse on this very important topic. With the continued rise in the percentage of aging population in our society, it is imperative that we come together to talk about opportunities in this area. We are also hoping that companies will use our degree and concentration as an employee reward and retention program as we look forward to its birth and growth in the near future. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Makrand Modi, newly promoted Associate Professor and moderator of the panel today. He has been on our faculty since 2015 and is an acknowledged and highly awarded researcher on the sharing economy. Dr. Modi?
Thank you, Dean Upneja, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you are in the world. And thank you for logging in today. It is my pleasure to be moderating this panel today with our wonderful experts who we have on our panel. And I'm going to start off by introducing each of our panelists. And you will see them on screen pop up. And also, panelists, if you could wave out as you are called upon. Our first panelist for today is Mel Gamzon. Mel is principal of Senior Housing Global Advisors, a real estate advisory firm that specializes in the senior housing business. For the past 4 decades, Mr. Gamzon has assisted both US and international investors with complex real estate and capital market transactions in this sector, valued at more than $2 billion. Mel was a founder of the American Seniors Housing Association and has served for more than 30 years on their executive board. He has also co-authored 2 books on the subject of real estate investments in the senior living industry, including a publication with the prestigious Urban Land Institute. Mel's industry passions are focused on new generation of industry development, operating, and technology initiatives. Of particular interest is the integration of wellness-based models as a core component of industry growth. Mel, welcome. Our second panelist is Beth Burnham Mace. Beth Mace is Chief Economist and Director of Outreach at the National Investment Center for Seniors Housing and Care, or NIC. Prior to joining the staff at NIC, she served as a member of the NIC Board of Directors for 7 years and chaired NIC's Research Committee. Ms. Mace is a member of the National Association of Business Economists, the Urban Land Institute, the Urban Land Institute's Senior Housing Council, and New England Women in Real Estate. In 2020, she was inaugurated into the McKnight's Women of Distinction Hall of Honor. In 2014, she was appointed a fellow at the Homer Hoyt Institute and was awarded the title of Woman of Influence in Commercial Real Estate by Real Estate Forum magazine and Globe Street. Ms. Mace is often cited in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Seniors Housing Business, among other publications, and also has a bi-monthly column in the National Real Estate Investor. Beth, welcome to the panel. Our third panelist is Jenna Anderson. In her role as Chief Marketing Officer at Salmon Health and Retirement, Jenna Anderson serves as a member of the company's leadership team, where she ensures that all policies and procedures are implemented at the community levels to drive consistent and strong positioning of the trusted Salmon brand. In 2018, Jenna joined Salmon as the Director of Sales, where she was responsible for driving revenue of the organization's independent and assisted living communities. In 2021, she was promoted to Director of Sales and Marketing, and most recently, Chief Marketing Officer, now responsible for every element of the sales and marketing efforts for the new Salmon at Medway community, as well as the existing Willows and Whitney Place communities. A graduate of Wheaton College, Jenna lives on Cape Cod with her husband, 2 children, and their 3 rescue dogs. In her spare time, she volunteers and fosters with local rescue shelters. Jenna, welcome to the panel. Our fourth panelist is Cindy Hale. Cindy Hale is Vice President of Marketing, Brand, and Revenue Management for 5 Star Senior Living. Over a few decades, Cindy has amassed extensive healthcare, hospitality, and consumer insight experience and leverages this experience when developing innovative growth programs for leading care companies. Cindy works with organizations to bring their inside out, leveraging a soulful approach to evolve to purpose-driven brands. A data-focused, digital-first champion, Cindy drives marketing innovation by creating consolidated, ROI-driven digital demand infrastructures and creatively activating programs to support growth-focused organizational goals. Cindy is an ardent supporter of Dana-Farber and is also co-captain of PMC Team Flames, having raised $8 million to date. Cindy serves on the boards focused on diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Welcome, Cindy. And our final panelist is Sanjeev Shetty. As Chief Global Strategy and Innovation Officer, Sanjeev is a thought leader in the aging services industry, bringing 25 years of experience in the technology strategy and innovation to Connected Living. Prior to Connected Living, Sanjeev consulted in the senior living space, working on aging in place healthcare solutions and strategic partnerships. He also spent 20 years at Time Warner and later Spectrum, running large technology, process, and revenue organizations. Sanjeev holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and an MBA in competitive strategy. Welcome to the panel, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Malcolm.
By 2030, all baby boomers will be expected to be at the retirement age of 65 years old or older, and this will expand the size of the senior population so that one in every 5 residents will be at retirement age, according to the US Census Bureau. In 2034, older people are projected to outnumber children for the first time in US history. That said, senior living penetration into households with over 75 years old is only 11%. So that's nearly 90% of households aren't choosing senior living currently. Having said that, total national health expenditures are projected to reach $6.2 trillion by 2028 compared to $3.8 trillion in 2019. So given some of these economic and demographic trends, panelists, what kind of opportunities do you see this boom in senior living, or at least in the senior age population, presenting to investors, operators, and other stakeholders in the senior living ecosystem? What does the development pipeline potentially look like? And we're going to kick off our panel with Beth. Would you like to take this question?
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. Well, the opportunity is huge, as you point out, just from the demographics. But the demographics for seniors housing really isn't the 65 and older, it's the 80 and older. And the US population 80 plus is projected to increase by 50% between 2020 and 2030 to about 20 million people. And that compares to 20 million compared to about an inventory base today of about 1.7 million. So there's a lot of room for growth just in sheer numbers of units that are out there. But the penetration rate, as you point out, is about 10% to 11%. We need to grow the demand. The value proposition for seniors housing is really compelling, certainly for investors, and most importantly, for residents. We learned that really through COVID. The experience of that, the socialization, the interaction, the care, the lack of concerns about having to, worry about your own food, worry about your washes, daily activities of daily living, really showed that seniors housing was a really good option, I think, for a lot of seniors. So developers have noticed this for quite some time. So there's a lot of development activity in the seniors housing market. Slowed down a little bit during COVID, but it's ramping up again, and we'll see that growth as we go forward. So I think the opportunity is huge. And especially for middle income seniors, the opportunity is quite big for developers to create housing and care options for that cohort.
Thank you, Beth. And you mentioned something that, there's this huge opportunity, and COVID has sort of shown a spotlight on that. I'm wondering, what are some of the other developments that have come out of the COVID pandemic that have perhaps been a positive for the senior living industry? So this could be in terms of either the patient experience, the resident experience itself, or in terms of other aspects of the senior living industry. Mel, would you?
I'd love to share. 2020 was a sea change in this industry. There's just no question about it. And ultimately, it was the beginning of a new reality for the industry and great opportunities. So on the positive side for the industry, we are seeing a significant spike in innovations. The evolution of value add new technologies, refined operating systems. Wellness is now becoming an increasingly important part of the industry. The financials are getting stronger. Thank goodness. The industry, for the most part, survived the brunt of the pandemic with positive outcomes. So that's the good news on the industry side. On the resident side, which is most important, obviously, to all of us, is that because the industry was so determined to keep focus and grow forward, the industry created overall a safer and more enhanced sanitary type of environment, which will only benefit these residents going forward. The congregate setting, which is characteristic of this industry, was not a setting of isolation, which they would have in their home. One very important fact that actually comes from Beth Mace and her colleagues at NIC. People have talked about, the disruption in senior housing. It's not a good place for seniors. There's been all kinds of media out there. I'll just give you a couple of quick statistics. Non-deaths. There was a survey that was done by the University of Chicago for NIC, and to clarify how well the industry has performed. In independent living, 67% of residents were not fatalities. They lived. Assisted living, 64%, and memory care, 61%. So all the myths that we have heard have now been backed up by fact.
Just for clarification on that, if anyone's interested in finding out more, that was a study that was just published by NIC through the work at the University of Chicago. It's on our website, www.nic.org. And it's really good. It took a long time to get to the data. The data was hard to cull through, but it's a really good study, and it does show that 2 of 3 senior housing properties did not have any COVID deaths.
You mentioned a few things there, Mel, which we will be delving into today. Cindy, I just wanted to perhaps give you the opportunity here to answer this question. How have you seen, from a marketing lens, from a branding lens, from a revenue lens, what have you seen as the impact of COVID-19?
I think we all know that the senior living industry was definitely impacted dearly by COVID, and that's a reality. But it's also important to remember that with adversity comes resilience and opportunity. And those are 2 really, really important words. And I think it's really, I guess it's no surprise how many senior living organizations were able to really dig in and demonstrate both resilience and opportunity. And that's really what we need to think about going forward. But medical, mental health industries, and certainly this industry, we really had to dig in and quickly transition to virtual care, virtual experiences. For our company, it went from creating virtual fitness classes to hallway ice cream socials and everything in between. We found ways to keep our residents engaged with each other, keep their learning up, and really to help keep isolation as much of a minimum as possible. And that was no easy feat. I think the most important thing for us to remember, no one is ever going to forget these 2 words and the power of them, and that's community and spirit. And when you bring those 2 words together, the power of community spirit, and maybe we took it for granted a little bit before COVID, but I can assure you that there is nobody in this industry now, both residents and team members, employees, that will ever put it behind them and not think about the power of community spirit. And that will be what's going to propel us going forward.
Thank you, Cindy. And I suspect that holds true for the hospitality industry as well. So there's clearly a lot of parallels across these different sectors. Cindy, you mentioned something interesting around this idea of offering virtual experiences. And Mel, you mentioned technology and innovation as being at the core of the resident experience as well. So in order to perhaps illustrate that point, Sanjeev, I know you have a very special guest here with us who has been interacting with residents, I believe, in two facilities already. So would you care to introduce everyone on the panel to that special guest?
Absolutely. Like Mel said and Beth mentioned, Cindy, it's been a challenging year, 2020, but there's always silver linings that I found that there was a tremendous acceleration of innovation, and Mel touched upon this, but robotics, if you had asked me 3 years ago, do you see robots running around in senior living facilities? I would have been like, not quite yet. But, Temi, and you're going to meet her in a minute, has made quite a splash. And rather than me talk about her, it's always more effective to actually have me have her come in and talk about herself. And what she's going to do here, actually talk a little bit about her capabilities. And we're going to show you what this feature called telepresence looks and feels like.
Hi, Boston University School of Hospitality panelists and attendees. My name is Temi. I am an affordable 3-foot 25-pound robot with 16 sensors on my frame that allow me to autonomously navigate myself around your building or home, helping amplify engagement, educate and provide entertainment for members and staff, supplementing the human experience and increasing your caregiver efficiency. My goal is to create an environment where an engaged life and proactive care can help your members with independence. I am so excited to be part of this call. Sanjeev asked me to attend this panel discussion on the future of senior living. As part of our differentiated strategy, Connected Living is now able to leverage my AI skills to help connect and engage your members and their families by facilitating family visits, playing joyful music that residents and staff can enjoy, conduct virtual sales tours for prospects, conduct telehealth visits, play interactive memory games, remotely monitor individuals, take lifelong virtual classes and engage in remote participation of wellness programs and help with daily needs. My integration with Connected Living enables you to ask me any questions about your services and facility, such as, what's for lunch? Are there any announcements? Can you connect me to my caregiver and has the mail been delivered today? Now I am going to show you my telepresence feature to connect two physically separated individuals by having Sanjeev call me from his location, showing you how he can virtually connect with me and control my movements. He will be able to move around my house and use my eyes and ears to experience my surroundings. Enjoy, and I hope to be part of the strategy for the future of senior living.
I did want to move on to another question, perhaps, and that was around the patient experience. And I'm going to bring in, since technology and innovation is one piece of it, I'm going to bring in another piece of that Mel alluded to a little bit earlier, which is around this concept of wellness. And I'm wondering, in terms of bringing wellness into either the resident experience or perhaps even activating it from a marketing perspective, how has wellness been incorporated into senior living over the past few years? Jenna, perhaps we can start with you for this particular question.
I was thinking about, wellness as it relates to certainly senior housing, but particularly post-pandemic. And I think what we have found, or at least what we have really tried to tap into, is the mental component of wellness. And what does that really mean? And I think, for a lot of people, what we are finding for leads and families, it really was the lack of that, family connection. Luckily, living in one of our communities, you still have that kind of communal feel that Cindy was referring to. But really, it's, thinking, how can we make sure that that box is checked in terms of mental wellness and connection? So when we're thinking about our spaces and the new spaces that we are building and the experience, our focus really has been and continues to be that family and intergenerational piece. So are we providing families with the opportunity to just come in and enjoy with their families and stay and engage in meaningful programming with them, and engage and stay and have, you know, dinner that's not confined to a specific time of day, and really allow for that flexibility and the fostering, if you will, of that kind of mental well-being experience. And that's really kind of where we've tried to lean, again, particularly post-pandemic.
Thank you, Jenna. Mel, what have you seen as, how has wellness progressed over the years, and where do you see it going into the future, particularly post-COVID, where we all know the importance of wellness now, not just in senior living, but in general in our own lives?
Well, that question could take hours. So I'm just going to try to do this in just a few minutes. I'd like to actually just reference my colleague Beth Mace again. She said in her opening statement, we need to grow the demand. That is extraordinarily relevant, extraordinarily relevant. Nick actually did another study within the last couple of years that said that by 2040, there will be a need, operative word being need, for 1 million new senior housing units. I absolutely agree with her. However, there is a big difference between need and demand. Okay, so where do we find the demand? Where is it sitting? A lot of it is sitting in this baby boom generation, which we're just coming on right now. And we are in a rising tide in this industry. And there will be a merger between wellness, lifestyle, and care. Our industry predominantly has been focused on care for decades. And that is a wonderful thing. It's the foundation of the industry. But wellness is coming on, and what the pandemic has done has accelerated the need to embrace wellness. We take a look at some numbers, as Makaran, you referenced the healthcare sector in this country is a $3.8 trillion sector today. Global wellness today is a $4.6 trillion endeavor at all layers of wellness. So wellness will be absolutely an important component. It started several years ago, lots of changes, lots of modifications, a great deal of innovation. And for the students that are on this program, prospective students, looking at care, looking at wellness as a balance is a huge benefit to your career in this industry.
And part of the challenge will be to really identify how to grow the business for this specific generation. The baby boomer generation is not like their prior generation, which was called the lucky few, which are today's residents, or the greatest generation, which was even before that. Every time the baby boomers is this huge 75 million cohort of people, and they've come through sort of the aging process, and they've changed everything. So even if you think about as they aged in the 80s and 90s, their buying habits changed. That transmitted into what kind of automobiles we want. They affected cultural norms. So nobody quite knows exactly what the secret sauce is to get the care and housing options that the baby boomers want. But a lot of us are certainly trying to figure it out and aim towards that direction to increase that penetration rate.
So if the industry, Beth, just to add on to what you said very quickly, if we can not change, but add to the messaging that's occurring in this industry today, which predominantly has been, we will care for you. If we look at the industry and look at the demographics going forward, this is an industry that will grow immensely by encouraging growing younger. growing healthier, preventative health maintenance. It will save costs and increase the lifestyle of people as they do get chronologically older.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Beth. Speaking of wellness and Zoom issues notwithstanding, Sanjay, we do know, as Cindy pointed out, that virtual experiences are going to be important. It's unfortunate we couldn't do the complete demo there for Temi, but perhaps could you speak to a little bit around how Temi has been received in the senior living facilities that she operates in, and also beyond Temi and beyond robotics, what are some of the other technology components and innovation that you at Connected Living have been working on?
So to answer your question, I think if you had asked me this question 3 years ago, my friend, my question would have been very different. Like I said before, the pandemic has really caused a rapid acceleration in innovation, and robotics and telehealth are at the center of that. So Temi is really, just to give you a very quick snapshot, it's the world's first personal assistant robotics platform. And what that means is that you can pretty much use it because it's so easy to use for any use case, whether it's telehealth, whether it's connecting families with members within your community. Obviously, the pandemic shone light on the fact that isolation was a key challenge, and trying to connect those family members through the telepresence feature of Temi was key. But I think if you look beyond robotics, I would say probably the number one thing that I'm seeing is a rapid growth. And let me just tell you what I mean by this. So if you think about technology as a pyramid, and you have infrastructure at the very bottom of that pyramid, and as you move up the pyramid, you've got applications and security systems, and at the very top, you have robotics and telehealth. I see a massive amount of investment in that bottom layer, what I call as the foundation, in terms of infrastructure planning, in terms of investments in Wi-Fi, hardening the internet capabilities of facilities. That would be the number one thing. But if we go beyond infrastructure, I would sort of agree with Mel and Beth that there's going to be a lot of investment in virtual care. I mean, obviously the pandemic has shown us that the ability to provide virtual care is going to be key. Mel talked about wellness. We are constantly innovating in this space, whether it's bringing wellness into the room, whether it's bringing wellness into other settings. There's going to be a lot of content providers, in that wellness space. And then the third area is remote monitoring and sensor technology, and the ability to provide safety for residents going forward. I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of investment in the space. This is an area that's very near and dear to me, and I do think that as more and more people jump into the space, that sensor technology is going to become almost like table stakes in any given environment. So that's where I see sort of most of the technology investments as well as trends going. If you look 10 years ahead.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Now, many of you have alluded to the resident experience in slightly different perspectives here. We're going to switch to and ask questions first of the marketers in the room. And Jenna, let's start this question with you, perhaps. Cindy and you spoke around this idea of community and that being such an important aspect of senior living communities today. How else do you as marketers go around building strong brands? Because as we've seen in other industries, the power of a strong brand is not something you can necessarily quantify. But how do you do that in a senior living context? How do you build a strong brand that resonates with residents, but other stakeholders as well?
I think that, when we look at marketing, particularly in our space, it can be a little predictable. And I think there's an opportunity for us as marketers to, not be afraid to try something new. Certainly you want to be consistent with your brand standards, but, to really get out there and explore different things and not be afraid of new opportunities. We've really tried to take hold of that video component we all talked about, kind of the virtual experience, and leverage that to be able to show families and prospects and leads exactly what life looks like in our communities when they haven't been able necessarily to come in and see for themselves. But we've been trying something new, certainly with our Medway community, and we've been taking that video component to TikTok and really reaching a very segmented audience that has continued to grow. And that's been really fun for us. We've really taken hold of Instagram, and we've taken a very different approach. We go for, I should say, a much more kind of life meme style, if you will, way of messaging, because we know our leads, they see themselves as young. And we want to show them that, you are very much living and growing and continue to be alive and thriving at our communities and certainly all of our communities. So that channel has been very successful for us as well. So I think it's, taking your brand and not being afraid to try new things, push the envelope a little, and certainly leverage what you have going on within your communities.
Thank you, Jenna. I love that. I love that you're on you leveraging TikTok as well for the students from my class here. Hopefully that resonates with our conversation from earlier this week. Cindy, same question for you. How do you build a strong brand? And one of the points that you're particularly passionate about, and I read out in your bio as well, this idea of building purpose-driven brands, and purpose seems to be enabling purpose seems to be such an important component of what you're hoping to do.
Yeah, that's this is one of my favorite subjects. I think the thing to always remember is a brand is what you make, and a reputation is something that you earn, and that there's a seismic difference between the two, and both are blessings and curses. I think what's most important to think about this industry, and I say this to students and anybody who's lucky enough to be in this industry, we are part of a purpose-driven business. Like, we help make life richer, better, and it's true both for the people we help have a better life and with the people we get to work with every day. It's this mutuality of richness. It's this mutual appreciation. And I think the thing that's true about a great brand is that it's authentic. And brands are true, the best brands, purpose-driven brands, are built from the inside out and from the bottom to the top. So all you have to do is walk into any one of our communities and see the love, see the passion, see that interaction, that mutual appreciation, and realize what's going on there. And if you can bring that emotion, that passion, that love and respect to life, that's the brand that we are living and breathing each and every day. How you build consistency around that, and what it's like to actually live it at all points of the company each and every day is, of course, where the tough work comes in. I want to share one quick example of probably the most transformative moment in my life was working with a mental health company that treats children that have acute disabilities. And their tagline was, "Because we must." And they brought us in and said, "We know there's something wrong, but we don't know what it is." And after spending 2 days of watching two people help a 12-year-old boy try to learn to stick out his tongue on his own, that moment he stuck it out and they put a sweet sensation, which was the first time he had a sensation on his tongue, and seeing what happened to his face transitioned to, "So every kid can." And when we take this industry and we turn it on its head and we stop thinking about what we can't do, and we stop empowering people to think about what we can do and what we enable, that's the transformative point in my mind of taking this industry from being a must to a want to. And that's where I hope our brand, our industry moves, and certainly where our CEO, Katie Potter, is driving us to go in the future.
And I would just add on to that exactly what you said, Cindy and Jenna. But I think when we talk about marketing, the best marketing comes from our residents. Honestly, when they're happy, they do the marketing because it's just through word of mouth, and they talk about it to their friends or to their church associations or whatever their connections are in the community. So it's sort of a bottoms up marketing effort that really comes naturally when you have a really good product that you offer.
And when you could bring authenticity to it, I mean, there is nothing like a 4 o'clock happy hour at one of our communities. They are rich and they are alive and they are loud and fun.
I just say quickly, I agree with you both. I think that, again, back to video, what it has taught us is you can leverage, like you say, Beth, those authentic moments, in small bursts to be able to show your leads, really empowering your teams on site to capture those little moments and have their arm around somebody at a happy hour, as you say, Cindy, or something like that, and really leverage those to get them out there to show exactly what's going on in your community, not just when you're set up for a visit or a tour, but really marketing that and showing, just as you say, that authenticity and what really goes on behind your doors.
Thank you, everyone. Slightly different question here, and I'm going to open this up to Mel to start. But marketing and branding very often can be about driving purposeful brands, but sometimes also about clearing out misconceptions, which I suppose there are a few as far as the senior living industry is concerned. Mel, what are some of the misconceptions that you've seen over the years that people have about senior living, and what can marketing do in order to alleviate some of those, perhaps?
Well, I'll do my best to answer the question. I'm more involved in the investment side of the industry, but let me take a stab at it. Certainly the misconception that this is some type of modified nursing home, it's pure care. It's not exactly a nursing home, but it kind of looks, like that, but no, it's really not. These are vibrant communities, and I can't think of a more vibrant community, candidly, going back to Cindy's comment of my mother we're down here in Florida, in South Florida, in one of your communities, and that happy hour was beyond belief. This was a potty, as you would say in New England. This is a heck of a potty down here. And it is vibrant, it's full of life. So that is a misperception in terms of enhanced marketing. What the marketing people, I believe, need to do are value add propositions through their marketing efforts. And I think one of the best things that could occur is to get more of a balance between care and wellness and preventative health maintenance, healthy living. And the more we gravitate, whether it's baby boomers such as myself, or throughout the continuum, the more we talk about wellness, fitness, preventative health maintenance, that's going to help alleviate that problem.
This is a question that I'd like to ask everyone, and it sort of encompasses the resident experience, marketing, and several other themes, including wellness that we've spoken about. Robert Kramer, founder of NIC, says that the senior living of the future won't be called senior living. So I'm curious if each one of you had to rename it, rebrand it, reconceptualize it, what would you call the senior living of the future and why? Sanjeev, let's start with you on this one.
To Cindy's point, purpose has to be at the center of everything that we do within senior living. And the way we have done it at Connected Living is we have basically supported the basic psychological needs. So we have removed ageism in all of our names. Even our name Connected Living doesn't have any ageism connotations in it. So a 13-year-old can use our technology and an 80-year-old can use it. And we offer choices on how to connect. We give seniors control, how, when, and who to connect with. And then we give them, most importantly, autonomy to access that critical information that shapes their daily lives. And the reason I mention all this is because this offers a backdrop as to how I would rename or rebrand senior living. I would have the word wellness in there because I think the future of senior living is really going to be centered around wellness. And of course, wellness is such a broad term and can mean so many different things, but I would almost vote for something, to the effect of a wellness retreat or a wellness habitat. That would be my vote.
And you also, in our earlier conversations, Sanjeev, you referred to it as Senior Living 2.0. So that would perhaps be Beth. How would you reconceptualize, rebrand Senior Living for the future?
Well, I have a little bit of an advantage because I know Bob Kramer very well. I've known him for about 25 years. So he's got a real point of view on this. And he thinks that the old view of retirement was declinist. It was to become dependent, disconnect, decline, disappear. And he thinks the new view on it is much more of a power, purpose, engagement, reboot, engage, enrich, experience. It calls it the D's versus the E's. And he thinks we're moving into the E's. So any of those words next to housing maybe would be right, or as Sanjeev said, wellness habitat. But one of the names that I've been tweaking around a little bit, it was boomerang housing, sort of coming back, or you see third act, or boomer housing. Any of those might work.
Certainly something that the marketers in the room, I suspect, can play around with a little bit. Mel.
First thing, Macaron, I want to thank you for ruining my weekend, because I spent a great deal of time thinking about this question and really had a hard time coming up with something. There's going to be a balance. It's inevitable. It's evolving. Both the healthcare sector, not just senior housing, but overall healthcare and wellness will merge. The conversation is going on. It will take time. It will not happen overnight. But the best way for us as an industry, for new, vibrant young people who are looking to enter this industry, is to look at that balance, look at programs that will help them be equipped to come into an industry that is open and receptive, not to full change, but to modification that enhances all. So what did I come up with? I came up with a name that's already copywritten with a huge corporation, and it's called WellCare, whatever. It's something, but it already exists. I don't know if one name is the answer. The concept and how we execute on it truly matters.
Thank you. Jenna, same question. How would you reconceptualize, I suppose, is perhaps the more accurate way to think of this senior living of the future?
Yeah. So I had a great conversation actually with my CEO, Matt Salmon, about this yesterday in advance of today's discussion. And, kind of playing off of what Sanjeev said, we've really tried to make a conscious effort to really strip away labels and strip away labels in our marketing, strip away labels internally in our jargon. And, we were kind of talking about, why does it have to have a name? And can't it just be? Because, what you market and what you offer will inherently attract the right population for your building, your community, what have you. So, I guess our thought is, let it just evolve and be. And let's not label it. Let's not give it a name. And again, just let our offerings speak for themselves and attract the right person to the right community. But definitely, as everyone has alluded to, certainly moving away from assisted living, trying to move away from putting senior with everything and utilizing the word senior in your marketing and in your branding, and just let your offerings kind of speak for themselves.
Thank you, Jenna. Cindy.
Hi, as someone who's moving squarely into this market, I can tell you it's quite funny when I talk to younger folks and they look at me and I can see it in their eyes. Poor her. Poor her. She's 60. She's put her kids all through college. She's just got her husband and her dogs and every night out with the girls. And, absolutely, there's downsides to aging, but I wouldn't want to be 13 again for all the tea in China. So I think it's important to if we start again to switch our perspective and make the most of this actual wonderful time in our lives. Imagine if we can really live well for longer and what that looks like. That's a really cool thought. There's this company called Cadis that makes eyewear for adults. And if you want to see a company that makes having bad eyes look awesome and fun, go see them. Imagine leopard printed disposable underwear for women. I mean, you know, there's so many opportunities for our industry to, you know, appreciate all that this is. This is an awesome time in lives. And yes, are there barriers? Are there health concerns? And I've lived through a lot of them too, personally. But there's a lot of joy here. And I think the brand needs to transition to that. And I think of words like renewal, new college, freedom, living fun, communities of relevance, friendship and kinship, and frankly, just living means a lot more now. So I don't have the actual word, but I have the concept pretty squarely in my head. And it looks great. And if you're young, this is where you want to be.
Thank you, Cindy. And I see a few words of approval from the audience as well. There is a couple of questions that have come in. So just keeping a track of time here, I would like to get to a couple of those questions at the very least. And the first of those was around cost. The question that came in was, can everyone afford this? Can everyone afford this senior living experience of the future? Beth, I know that in our initial call, we had spoken about affordability as being an important factor going forward. So would you like to take this question perhaps?
Yeah, so we did a big study on this called The Forgotten Middle 2 years ago, really focusing on the need and so people have forgotten a little bit about this huge burgeoning group of people that can't really afford today's product. So a lot of operators, a lot of developers, a lot of financiers are really working on that to figure out how to create that. The real estate portion, the rental piece can be figured out based on the cost basis of the land and things like that. But it's the care portion that still has to be figured out. So I don't know that we have a single solution for yet, but it is something that all the students and everybody on this call should put some attention to because the need is huge. And we have some one-off ideas, but it has to be able to be replicated so that you can create this kind of housing and care option for many people. So I don't have the answer yet, but I'm glad you brought it up because we need a lot of solutions. So everybody should start thinking further about it.
And relatedly, the question in its entirety was around, and I didn't ask it this way, but around affordability blended with issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do those two issues, in essence, relate together as well? Has that conversation been had in the senior living industry thus far? And what has the nature of that been, perhaps?
There are definitely conversations about that as well. And it's moving into more affinity groups. And you see a lot of operators trying to focus on that with, you know, different cultures or different other characterizations of different groups.
There's another question that's come into chat. So I'm gonna ask this, and then I'll leave it open in case somebody wants to take this one here. Has anyone experimented? And again, this was a conversation we had beforehand. Has anyone experimented with intergenerational housing? And this comes from Mary Ellen Wickham. Anytime you segment off one group, that is how nursing homes used to be on the outskirts of town, leading to less vibrancy and stagnation. Have you considered creating co-housing that has aging in place as a component of it? So this question, this idea around intergenerational housing. Jenna, would you like to take that one? I see you were going for your mic there.
Yeah, I think the concept is certainly a great one. And I think that the future will hold much more of that in some way, shape, or form. You know, our newest community under one roof is independent living, assisted living, and memory care. So our first real go of, you know, kind of authentic, if you will, aging in place from certainly a later age in life, aging up. But yeah, you know, I agree with everything Beth said about, you know, need certainly for affordable housing, and then lending itself to intergenerational housing, certainly I think is, you know, the way of the future.
I've got a few thoughts on that. Intergenerational housing also, beyond the more seniors oriented cohorts, intergenerational with young people, middle age. We in the industry have been looking at this and actually participating in ventures where there is multifamily housing, hotels, commercial, commonly referred to as mixed use developments. So intergenerational housing is going to be a very important component, not just in our sector, but in the housing sector, how overall multifamily and hotels, commercial, how they all pull together. So it's a very, very important question. Thank you for asking.
We're going to do one more question, just looking at time, and this came in earlier as well. The speakers on the panel were asked about strategic methods in regard to forming a brand. As Ms. Anderson said, those living in these communities still feel young and they should be treated that way. To what extent is education used in senior living communities? I believe that seniors who are consistent and committed to education will have the confidence to contribute to current events with innovative ideas. By doing so, they will be happy and convinced that they too can be involved in every conversation. So the role of education as far as senior living experiences are concerned. Cindy, I was wondering if this was perhaps a component of what you have been working on in terms of the patient experience, in terms of the resident experience. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just wrote a note to everybody and just said, if you choose this field in whatever form, you're choosing passion and purpose. And you're also choosing a lifetime of learning. Can you imagine sitting next to textbooks every day, people that have so much to share and give, and freely? And absolutely, it's already happening within our communities, the mutuality of learning and sharing and giving. But it's the tip of a future iceberg that I think may help really define where this industry goes in the future to be all we can be. I mean, you know, that statement, it takes a village, is not lost on this industry. And we're going to win by really finding mutual appreciation for each other and leveraging all each can bring to the party. I think youth brings so much innovation and thought, and age brings wisdom. And when you bring those two things together, there's no stopping any of us.
Yeah, I would just add that if I was a student again, I would really consider seniors housing as an awesome career. You have such an opportunity to learn and to love and to do well by doing good. And you get to work with really cool people who just happen to have a few more years of life experience than you do. So it's a great consideration. So consider it. We need you.
I've got I've just got one thought on that as it relates to prospective students in your program, Maharan. Be bold, look beyond the ordinary, join in this new generation of this growing industry.
Thank you, Mel. Beth, Cindy, Jenna, Sanjeev. As with every great panel of experts, this is where I would like to sincerely thank you on behalf of the School of Hospitality Administration. But before we do end the call and end the panel, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Leora Lanz, who has something really quick to share with us.
I just simply wanted to say thank you to our panelists who have become friends of our program, friends of our school, and who have helped us at the School of Hospitality become just as passionate about this field as you are. To the students who are watching, I know I recognize some names of those of you who are attending. You all know, and I think this is the right word, in my marketing classes, I am an anti-ageist. Is that the right term? I don't want to hear the word old or elderly. I don't want to see certain tick boxes on our market research survey. So you know how I feel, and you've been hearing this for a long time. So my passion and our school's passion has really grown for this. And I look forward to the program that we're launching. I look forward to the continued relationships that our students in our school will have with the industry, and combining and bringing the intersection of hospitality with senior living and lifestyles, or enriched wellness and the future and renewal and all the great terms that we heard, because that's exactly what we should be doing for ourselves and for society. So on behalf of Dean of NAJA and the School of Hospitality, thank you, Dr. Modi. Thank you to Beth and to Mel, Cindy, Jenna, and Sanjeev. Your friendship with our program means so much. And to everyone listening, we hope you learned something and are inspired, and we will see you very soon. We have 2 more panels coming this summer. Thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your day.